Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's Window Company, New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding is provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, M&T Bank, Muss Development, LLC, Des Moines Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, W Financial Mortgage Fund, the Witkoff Group.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoller. New York City, people love to eat. Manja, they like eating, they want to go to different restaurants, they want to try everything. But so what's happening with the restaurants? You know, how are they doing? How are the operators doing? Do they really have chefs or they have celebrity chefs? So I've assembled, or should I say my friend Drew helped me assemble, 4 top restaurateurs, operators, truly operators probably, to be here today. My guests include Joe Bastianich of B&B, or also known Bastianich and Battaglia. Jimmy Bradley of the Red Cat
Bradley.
And Harrison,
Yes.
principal. The legendary Shelley Fireman of the Fireman Hospitality Group. And last but not least, Drew. You don't even need a last name. They're important, okay?
Well,
you know,
take whatever
Noble,
they give me.
Tribeca, you know, and a variety of other places. So, you remember where you started as a grill man. McDonald's, the grill man. So after, now it's about 37 years?
Yeah.
So how is it today? How's the restaurant business today? How's it operating in New York? Can you deal with it? Can you make money in the recession? What's going on?
Well, my thinking is of any place in America right now, New York is the most efficient. It still operates 365. You can rely on a volume of business to sustain you 7 days a week. So I'm happy to tell you that we're about to celebrate 20 years at the Tribeca Grill, and we're still busy. Nobu obviously is busy, and I opened a new restaurant last year. It's busy. I used to have a restaurant in San Francisco for 14 years. I don't think they're faring as well. I've had restaurants in Seattle, Boca Raton, Martha's Vineyard, you name it, Washington, D.C. Maybe, Shelley, you can tell us about your new place in Washington. But New York, for me, is still an efficient and productive city for restaurants.
Joe, you're in New York, you're now in Greenwich, you're in Vegas, you're in Los Angeles. What's going on?
I think efficiency, Drew, it's the Mecca restaurant market. It's the most deep, dense, efficient. I think that we have the best dining here because it's really, New York is the greatest meritocracy in all senses, and I think that holds true in restaurants too. The great survive and prosper, and the not so great kind of fall off. And we have a restaurant Darwinism here that's quite efficient. That's why when people come to New York, the restaurants are so terrific.
The question I have, and the question is, we're doing great in Manhattan. Thank God Carnegie Hall is operating very well, and Lincoln Center, and our business.
What about Times Square? You got Bond
Great.
45?
Well, no,
You got the
and
Brooklyn Diner?
We're up about 12%, and we're going. So I'm very happy. We just opened up on the Potomac. It's going to be a smash. They were 150 deep on Tuesday evening at the bar. So we opened up Bond 45, and we're opening up 2 more on the Potomac and National Harbor. and we're the only steakhouse in the game, and that makes me smile. There's no competition. Where in New York, I got
New York, you have more
stars
steakhouses
here.
than the world. I mean,
Pardon me?
New York, you have a lot of steakhouses in New York.
In New York, so I got to compete with all these stars. Down in National Harbor, I'm the star. What a pleasant surprise to be the star
Now,
for a
you know,
change.
it's interesting. I have this group here, and I have one person who's really a chef. Now, he went to Cornell. He went to the hospitality school, but he learned how to open up a can of onion soup. But you're a chef.
That's right.
I mean, you're a chef and a restaurateur. How do you see the world? And you're even opening up a new restaurant.
Yeah. Well, I thought about it in terms of in 2008, 2009.
You went to confession and said, I'm
yeah,
making
right?
an error?
Forgive me for I have sinned. I was thinking about it as hopeful and feeling hopeful about it. And recently, I've been feeling optimistic about it. And it's a slight change in words, but they're very different in meaning. And I think that, you know, it's a little more simple for me because I have smaller places and they're easier to keep your hands on, and also the neighborhoods that we've chosen are continually growing, right? You know, we moved into the neighborhood 8 years before Joe, and he's saying the neighborhood is great, you know, so it helps to be able to forecast and to pick some good locations.
So when you moved into Chelsea meatpacking, that was truly like when he went
when
into
we moved into 10th
Tribeca.
Avenue, they weren't calling it Chelsea.
Right.
They would refer to where we were as Far West Chelsea.
Yeah, they also had another term. It was called transvestite
Yeah,
village.
yeah, it was where you went to cop and
He's
you know.
very modest because the Harrison, which is the restaurant on Harrison Street in Tribeca, how soon after 9/11, or
yeah.
you were actually planning the opening probably
That's
right
a
when
tragic
that
story.
happened. And
We had Food and Wine magazine throwing us the opening party, and it was September 17th, and obviously that never happened. And when September 11th happened, everyone, I mean, I met you on Greenwich Street with our ID cards to see if we could get to our properties.
Exactly.
And I guess I thought about it for a long time. We continued the construction in the hopes of doing something there. And I thought, you know, my goal is to have a neighborhood restaurant. And if this neighborhood doesn't need us now, you know, that's fine. But I bet they need us now. Let's just get the doors open. If we fail, we're all in it together, and at least we tried. And we managed to open October 26th, so 5 weeks after 9/11. And literally, you could, you know, the whole neighborhood smelt like burnt wires and electricity, and there's dust in the air. And Greenwich Street was full all day, every day with dump trucks that would just park in front of you and then go down and pick up stuff, drop it off, and come back around. You couldn't see the restaurant for the first 3 weeks it was open.
unbelievable.
I remember that opening party. It was still very emotional
Yeah.
at that point.
Plus,
And
he
then
took
the
over
mayor-
a space that had previously been a failure. I don't know how you feel about going into a spot that has ghosts. You know, there's a lot of turnkey operations nowadays.
I think if you exercise the demons, I don't think you can go in and just
There's
say,
a little exorcism, and you know you do
Yeah.
a good job. But you know you talk about Chelsea meatpacking, Tribeca. What about Lower Manhattan? I mean, you're in you're in Tribeca, but Lower Manhattan is still an unusual. I mean, it's one of the biggest tourist attractions in the country. More people go there on a Saturday and Sunday than anywhere else. Century 21 is still the largest grossing per square foot of any store in the world. But why don't restaurants really do well in Lower Manhattan?
In fact, Francis Tavern, I think, just closed its doors after so many years. It just seems to me that it's the one neighborhood on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, which are pretty much when most of the people dine out, in the Wall Street area. There's just no populace.
There's no more Wall
it's
Street. You have to
difficult even
remember
to
this.
refer
There's
to
no more
that
Wall
as a
Street.
neighborhood, because by
Right.
definition, neighborhoods have lots of different businesses and lots of different housing opportunities. And up until 5-10 years ago,
So how do you determine in this market? People would say, because if you were in the office market or the residential market, this was a great time for a tenant. Landlords were giving something which you never heard of, free rent for periods of up to a year. They were giving you work letters of $80 to $100 a square foot. Rents were down to the lowest number.
we borrowed money at 1%.
So where are you? Where do you see that today in your business? Have you been the beneficiaries of this change of the real estate market in New York, and with regard to it. Yes, Mr.
No,
Mr. Positive.
I've tried to renegotiate 2 leases. I have some very good landlords, but there's a prevailing idea that somehow I was paying below market rent up till this moment, and now I should be punished for trying to renew a lease at market rent, or I don't know. I just have never been very successful in the real estate aspects of
but
this
Shelley
thing.
was saying prior to the show, and he has, one would say, some of the strongest and hardest people to deal with in the real estate business, and you've had some great relationships with
What
these
do you mean I had? I still have, and I
okay.
hope to continue for another 100 years.
So what's your philosophy? Like I, for instance, I never want to pay percentage rent. You obviously are paying percentage rent in all these places.
Sometimes I have landlords who come from the old school that they still think we have a cigar box. We put $10 in at the beginning of the day and we got $20 at the end of the day, so they don't know we have computers and don't have cash. And we have accounting firms that check everything, so some don't want percentage rent.
And you got caught in a problem when the building that you were in got sold to another group, and then they
Right.
started playing all kinds of games with you.
That was
That was aggressive. That was Del Posto. We signed,
right.
a big lease, a 40-year plus lease at, very, very. We were talking about it was way before the area developed, so it was way, way under market. Building sells, new landlord comes in, and they basically launch an attack. Look to the new lease, big lease. So they hire a PR agency, new big fancy restaurants. So they effectively either wanted to break the lease or have us go out of business, because if you take that lease in net present value dollars versus the market rent, it's a $30 million asset. You know what I mean? So for them, and they wanted to flip the building, it was a big
If you
play.
look at
How
it
was
this
it
way, right
resolved?
now, that what's happening with you on your new place, you're gaining the benefit also on 23rd Street. You're taking the opposite situation, because 2 years
Yeah,
ago, when they bought the building and they bought it at the height of the market,
Right.
they didn't, they wouldn't have ever given anybody a decent rent like you were able to get right
our
now.
landlord on 23rd Street's the Toy Building. It's a benchmark building. They've been very fair, very great. It's a big piece of retail, important piece of retail in Manhattan, a lot of square footage. We got into another world there in the sense we were competing against big box retailers. There's not many 40, 50,000 square foot restaurants, so that's a whole nother parameter. And but I have to say that perhaps it was the prevailing winds of the economy, but the landlord of the Toy Building, which they completely redid, first class, green building, great tenancy. They did a nice job.
But you're enhancing their building for them.
They've enhanced the building themselves
No,
as
they
well.
have, but you're also enhancing the building and changing the situation the same way you help out in Lincoln Center on
The
some of your
landlords
buildings.
could charge extra for their commercial space where in their ground floor space.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
I mean, over
They
here,
don't always understand that, by the
they
way.
have there aren't fooderies or eatery places really on 23rd Street in that market where you are. They have a lot of companies over there. They have great advertising. They want to have some service. Plus, on Madison Square Park, not everybody's running to the Shake Shack to go to you.
No, I think Ely will definitely, it already has completely changed the demographic of that neighborhood. You see a lot of restaurants and food operators are snapping up surrounding real estate. It's going to definitely change
Yeah, I
what
was
happens.
noticing that.
What's happening in that area is going to change very much.
Now, you went to Westchester. How did you decide to go up?
I live in Greenwich, and this is just a funny story where my wife drives to Costco in Portchester, which is the next town. She sees there's an empty restaurant, auction sign on it, Terry Lodge. She's like, everyone has to go to everyone who lives in Greenwich. So it's between Rye, Greenwich, Purchase, Armonk, Harrison, Portchester. Great town. Everyone goes there to go shopping, go to the movies. It's near where everyone lives, where all the people who are going to eat out live anyway. And she's like, you should go. You should buy this place. So Terry Lodge, I go to the auction, not intending to buy it. Bid. Congratulations, you just bought the Terry Lodge. Bought the real estate and everything. And then I was just going to kind of fix it up and flip it and try to do a real estate. And then I found out this has been a restaurant for 100 years. Everyone knows about the restaurant. Who went there during the war, after the war, D-Day, birthday, celebration. I was like, oh my God, I have a real heirloom. I have an asset in my hand. So what we did is we did a historical renovation on the restaurant.
So you get the tax credits?
It's a funny town, and it's been very successful. We've kind of put in it was an Italian bar and pizzeria. Now it's that again. We run it in our style, and it's been very nostalgic, and people really appreciate it.
I bet they do.
What about you?
great
You're in
story.
Ridgewood. You never thought of opening up something in New
No,
Jersey?
my favorite line from friends and anywhere outside of New York, they say, you really should open a restaurant in, wherever you are. And I look at them and I go, and you'll go only on Saturday for dinner, Friday or Saturday. Because the lesson to be learned outside of New York is that these places are dead from Monday through Thursday. And as we know, we can't be dead one night of the week, let alone 4. So
Well,
he's extraordinary. That restaurant, people probably come from outside of,
Right.
probably come from New York to eat in that restaurant, I'll imagine.
but there was another one, I think. I'm not sure of the name of the restaurant in Yonkers. I mean, Yonkers had a big-
XY restaurant? No, forget his name, chef.
It's about a year old.
Peter Kelly.
What's his name?
Peter Kelly.
Peter
Kelly.
Kelly.
A
And
terrific
that,
chef,
and
terrific
that
restaurant.
place is doing very well
Very well.
because, and
It's right on the
Yonkers had
water.
a need. There was
All the secret is that these XY or Peter Kelly's restaurant, our restaurants, are New York restaurants transplanted out. So everyone gets shortchanged in the burbs. They're like, very shoddy build-outs, bad service.
Agreed.
It's like
That's
skimp.
what's-
It's not the full experience. So you give them a real New York experience and you put it where they live, they'll come.
Yeah, there's still no volume, though.
That's what's
At
happening
your restaurant,
down in
there
the
is.
Potomac. It's a New York Italian steakhouse, and there is nobody that even compares with us.
Until we get there.
If you get there, I'll be upset. I don't like it.
Hands on there.
Charlie, thanks for the scouting report.
Wait a second. Can I get the scoop that he's opening up in Potomac?
No.
No.
So how many seats do you have there?
Well, I have 250 in the steakhouse. I'll
Oh, my
have
God. Big
restaurant.
400
Make some money.
at the Red Eye Grill, and I'm building a pizzeria cafe that'll seat 200. I'm the only pizzeria, the only steakhouse, and the only Red Eye Grill, if I could understand it myself, down there. So
Can I point one thing out to you, Michael? So Shelley has the Red Eye Grill, on 7th Avenue, and has this incredible space, and he does, gangbusters there. So when, there's many years ago, I go by and there's this enormous outdoor space there. I go, Shelley, I don't get it. Why don't you use the outdoor space?
I just started because the landlord had a view of his property and the elegance of his property, and he was kind enough to allow us to persuade him to alter it slightly. So I think we've done a very
Meanwhile, there's a Hooters right next door.
Yes,
So-
the Hooters on the other side.
Why? He's in it.
No, wait, I have a question. I noticed that you're open for lunch and dinner in your places. You'll be open. You opened up the Red Eye Grill to breakfast?
And stopped it. Because the Brooklyn Diner is jammed for breakfast. They stand online to get in. They didn't need to spend that kind of dollar at the Red Eye Grill.
But that relates to, business and everything else. What's the pricing today, your average ticket in your restaurants in Manhattan?
Anywhere from lowest average ticket is probably Becco, which is $43, and the highest is Del Posto, $154.
Jimmy?
About 60, 65.
And what do you think on the J&S?
Well, yeah, most of our restaurants are very similar in size, and we try to put them in neighborhoods that, have a density of customers that are going to come a few times a week. My projections for J&S are very similar to the Red Cat.
One of the things he does that's very clever at dessert time. Tell us what you do at dessert time.
With the old thing,
Yeah.
with the, I used to own this restaurant called the Mermaid Inn, and I wanted to sell wine for as cheap as you could possibly sell it. $10 every bottle on the list.
I hope you
$10
bought the wine
over
from him at
cost.
least.
But he
You
did that
know,
once too.
So I was selling Peter Michael for $60 and Gotham selling it for $180. So I'm thinking maybe I sell 2 bottles, How the hell do you pay for this? I don't know. And it was a fish restaurant. I thought, a lot of people, don't eat dessert in fish restaurants, that kind of concept. I said, there's no way to not offer dessert. But if dessert was free, then you could perhaps do whatever the hell you want to do. So we live on 2.5 turns. That's what we need. We're very successful when we do 3. Mermaid Inn was up to 5 turns a night. Unheard of. Out of 100 seats, doing 450 covers.
Because we sell food and beverage, but we also sell
turns.
Space.
Yeah.
And time.
I mean, you have a limited amount of space, and you have to turn that space over there.
Yeah.
You know, so
By the way, you just gave Shelley a very good idea for.
No, I wasn't paying. Actually, I was paying attention. I tried to figure out, what is he doing? He's working like a dog giving away food for
Right.
free. What is he?
Wait, but
I had to sell the
last
restaurant
year when I
anyway.
did a show, somebody was telling me that the Palm, which we were talking about before, it was, different market. They were doing Wednesdays, all the wine in the restaurant, in all their restaurants half price.
Our friend Alan Stillman pioneered that, right?
Yeah.
Giving away wine
Yeah,
concepts.
Wine Week.
No,
Ellen
the
Stillman's
wine week. But no, this was, to get the people to buy.
The Palm has a lot of promotions. They have this club,
The
the
837
837 Club, which is their first. I mean, I go to the Palm. My face is painted on the wall. I can't say I don't really dig that restaurant, but they do some things that demonstrate that they are adapting and perhaps
So
not
here's the
successfully.
big question. Fiorello's 30 years?
30 years.
Tribeca?
Well, Tribeca's 20. Montrachet was 25, and then now Cordon.
Your
First,
oldest?
Becca's 20 years.
How do you continue to keep that business there? How do you go to the 30 years? how do you get the customers to come back? I mean, the Palm is 60
question.
years in different markets. How do you do that?
I never talk about check averages. That's really, that's the truth. Let them just come and be happy. I don't care what they spend. That's my philosophy. I never think, what's my check average? Just come.
And to Joe's point, I think if you care and you demonstrate you care and you're interested in having a little fun anyway, that's a business model that everybody gets behind.
So the real question is, what you're saying is you also have to enjoy it and you have to have fun
Yeah,
to
it
make
helps
the restaurant
if you
successful.
don't mind working
I mean,
at the
there's-
business you own.
I think part of the situation for all of you is each place has a personality of the owners. And you go into a Ruth Chris, it's a Ruth Chris or a Morton's. It's not a personality.
Right.
It's a machine that looks like that. The people aren't trained. The people aren't caught into.
But there's a very important lesson when you open your business, which is not to bite off more than you can chew. In many situations, we're shot out of the cannon. If we're good, everyone wants to come right away. It's new. The trick is to don't take everyone the first several weekends, and you'll be opened 10.
See, but they don't
20
know the
years later.
Byron Miller story, that your
forget
mother,
it. Yeah,
that was
yeah.
the way, his mother probably did the same thing, saying to the people,
Brian Miller.
my great restaurant. She was the shill for the restaurant, it's a different case.
Well, but I think the proof's always in the pudding, Michael. If a place is going to be good, there's a reason to go. But I think you have to minimize the number of times you say no to the customer.
Now, all
That's
of you
also
are
important.
entrepreneurs who started your own restaurant. How hard is it today for the new kid on the block to open up a restaurant?
You're the new kid on the block.
I'm
so
the new
hell
kid
yeah.
on the block. I would say, unless your father's got a lot of money, don't do it. Or start like we all started. In a
No
tiny-
bagels. I'm not.
There's no. I mean, we started so small. It would our chairs were orange crates. That's how I started. I'm being serious. We couldn't afford the 12 chairs.
Wait a second. These guys grew up here. He was out of town. He was Rhode Island.
Oh, he's a fancy.
He didn't know about it. But how does somebody go into it?
I think that it's funny because it's kind of come full circle. We grew up in Queens and Forest Hills in the 70s, and I grew up in restaurants. And, I can remember a different restaurant. I remember, being embarrassed to tell people that my family was in the restaurant business because everyone else's dad was a doctor or a lawyer. It was so blue collar. We went to the restaurant, we lived there. You didn't eat in the restaurant when customers were there. The restaurant was for customers. It was to be revered. It was a very different mentality, and then like a lot of things that my dad, it's funny, people ask me, it's like, what's the marketing plan? Well, the marketing plan is, Mary, you're the cook, I'm the waiter, we buy stuff, we fix it up, we sell it for a profit, right? Your rent should be my dad told me, your rent should be what you gross on the slowest day of the month. That should be your rent. There's like certain axioms in the restaurant business, and I think that in a funny way with the young people, people are returning to that, and that's what the offbeat neighborhood's about inexpensive rents where you can express yourself, you can make money, because ultimately you have to make money, because when a restaurant is successful, it's generous. It's not only generous to you, it's generous to the customers. It allows you to be generous, hospitable. It creates goodwill and the experience that people want. So margin and profit is fundamental to
So who's
good
opening up
dining
in
experience.
Williamsburg over here? Who would open? I mean, it's the Generation Y. We're all too old to be there, but
It's seems like the next logical thing.
Right.
And if you were, to your question, if you're a young upstart, taking a big nut lease doesn't make any sense, you know. So you go to a place, you either find a landlord who's sympathetic to your cause and somebody who wants to put you in business
You
instead of milk
look at it
you.
this way. There are 2,850 new apartments in downtown Brooklyn. We won't even talk Williamsburg. Somebody's going to live there.
Yes.
You know, Alan Rosen Jr.'s, he shouldn't be the only restaurant to make a living in downtown Brooklyn.
Why just Brooklyn? I mean, don't people eat in the Bronx or in Queens?
No,
That's what I
but
say.
no, wait a minute. I'm from the Bronx. Stop.
What I always
Wait,
find
what?
interesting is people will show me a space on a block that, you know, it's a major thoroughfare in Manhattan, and I'll look on that block and there's not one eatery on that block, which is astounding if you think about it.
Right.
And that should be a telltale sign about maybe not to put it there.
Sure.
Wait a
It's
how
not that
much
they
can-
need it, you know. It's like,
I don't understand. How much can we earn in Brooklyn?
yeah, that's it.
Let's face facts. You want your kid to he went to college? What is he going to earn in Brooklyn? Does anybody? Let's look at that, because I look at it all the time and say, wait a minute. It's
I
like
think
driving a-
what Brooklyn has done though recently is it's a lot of these smaller restaurants like Franny's
Yeah,
and
but
that
you know-
are run.
Franny's, I'm
people
impressed.
work
But
their tail
Franny's a
off.
separate case. But you know, look, in downtown Brooklyn, you had Gage and Tolna that became an Applebee's, and you know the situation. I wish we had more time, but we are going to bring this crew back because if I didn't, it would be criminal. I'd like
We'll
to
bring
thank-
food next time.
We'll bring food next time, as opposed to the apples.
Wait a minute.
I can't
we
believe you
came
didn't bring.
here. The food is supposed to be
Okay,
given
the
to
food's
us.
here. I'd like to thank Joe
Some nice
Bastianich, Jimmy Bradley,
Shelley Fire.
Charlie Fireman, and Drew. Thank you. See you next week.
Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's Window Company, New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding is provided by grants from Akron Gold Brothers, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Friedman, LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, M&T Bank, Muss Development, LLC, Des Moines Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, W Financial Mortgage Fund, the Wickoff Group.